Welcome. I'm Larry Olsen, and this is the Brain Vault Podcast. Did you know that the thoughts you're thinking right now are shaping the life you'll live tomorrow? Well, in this podcast, we just don't talk about mindset. We decode the blueprint behind behavior, performance, and possibility. This is where science meets real-world strategy, and your brain stops running on autopilot. If you're ready to turn default thinking into intentional living, you're in the right place. Well, welcome all of you to the Brain Vault Podcast, where cutting-edge science meets success. And I wanted to start out, before I introduce our guest, with a question for you. So take a moment to think about what comes to mind when I ask this question. For any of you who are in the process of aging, and I think that would include my entire audience, what if aging isn't something that happens to you, but something you've been unconsciously trained to accept? My guest today, Dr. Sofia Din, isn't your typical physician. She's someone who's seen the end of the story and decided to rewrite the beginning. A board-certified MD with over 25 years of experience, she spent decades in geriatrics and hospital care, watching up close what happens when health managed too late occurs. But what she discovered changed everything. Aging gracefully and aging helplessly are not the same path. An immigrant from Pakistan who completed her medical training, check this out, twice, once abroad and again in the U.S. Dr. Bin brings a rare fusion of Eastern and Western medicine, and today she's at the forefront of longevity, aesthetics, and what she calls the intersection of healthspan, lifespan, and beauty span. Her work challenges conventional thinking, and that's why I'm so excited to have her today, arguing that beauty isn't vanity. It's a visible expression of internal health, and that the real goal isn't just to live longer, but to look, feel, and function at a higher level for longer. Her book, Do We Really Need Botox? And her work on chronic skin failure are redefining how we think about aging, self-care, and what actually possible. Dr. Ben, welcome to the Brain Vault Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. That was great.
You know, Dr. Den, I wanted to start out with a question for you. You know, you've seen what aging looks like at its worst. So what are people doing today without realizing it that's accelerating that outcome? And how do we begin to start thinking differently about it?
What are people doing that they're not understanding aging? I guess what I would say to that is that aging, the understanding of aging is now completely changing. And we are awakening to this new um, perception of self with a heightened information and more data. And what I feel in 2025 and our this year 2026 is the patterns of change are basically being helped by artificial superintelligence. So people are awakening to a new sense of what they need to do, and things that initially there was like this, I felt that this gatekeeping that was keeping people from learning more about themselves and about how to age with agency, is the tables have turned and the paradigm has shifted. So what used to be accepted, as you said previously, that aging was just like a phase of life that you have to just take sitting down like a duck, where things would befall upon you out of nowhere, and you'd be like, oh, now suddenly I led my life completely like a prophet, and I was on the straight path. I never did this or that, and why I have like suddenly these 5 diseases happening. Or as in your vault, where you talk about just brain, why am I suddenly afflicted with dementia or Parkinson's or a movement disorder? What is going on? And that understanding has been overturned because now we realize that aging itself is a disease. It is itself is not just something that you need to just take easily. You have to understand what are the patterns that are leading to the disintegration of yourself. So we are now realizing that just like every human has a period of growth, and then that growth leads to a period of peak, whatever peak that your genetic material is destined for. And then of course there are so many environmental issues also, but that period then leads to a point where that peak self cannot be kept for there indefinitely. That peak is like there for like a few years at best before the system starts for a decline. And those periods are preceded by at least 10 years of a different phase. So in my terminology, what I experienced was that I have recognized those periods as the periods of pause. So if you're a female, it is menopause, where a pause hits the human body of a female. And before that pause hits, which is considered a fertility pause, where you're no longer fertile anymore, or you're no longer at that point where you would create any more offsprings. But before that pause actually hits them, stay in a period of perimenopause, which is a brief pause through out of which their bodies exit at least a decade before a final pause hits them. Now, females are we're a little blessed because at least we have a physical symptom of this pause hitting us, and we're like, okay, now we're in a pause. So now things are going to be different. However, men, on the other hand, who go through a similar experience of pausing, their systems also feel that arrest. Like the point comes in men's life, which is a little later than women, depending on how well they lived their life. So that period can sometimes be in late 50s, and sometimes it can be in like early 50s, depending upon your health of how you led your life. However, men also go through andropause. However, nobody tells them. Nobody explains it to them that actually you are also going through a pause where your hormones are declining, where the internal chemistry of your system is no longer what it used to be when you were younger. And at this point, just because of this hormonal imbalance, you are going to see shifts in your wellness and your energy and your different systems functioning together in harmony, because health is nothing but harmony that is occurring inside your system, inside your body. Is basically you're nothing but a chemical reaction occurring under your skin. So that chemical reaction gets imbalanced every time there is a hormonal shift. So that shift occurs in women. We have recognized that that perimenopausal period of time extends for roughly 10 years before they experience the pause. And in men also, we are recognizing that men also have these shifts occurring. Sometimes it could be because of environmental factors. Sometimes it could be because of just other health factors. Sometimes it could be sleep or your career or whatever else that is disrupted. However, whenever you go take a break, whenever you go get a vacation or like a massage or something, you eat well, and for a few days you are able to lift yourself out of that pause. But even men go through a pause where if they don't help themselves, they see a systematic degradation in their level of functioning with every subsequent year. So one of the things that we found was like that period, that what we are doing, sorry for this very long answer, but I thought that it may be important, where if you once you understand that all these problems, these shifts occur during your pause and your perimenopausal or a periandropausal stage of life, if you can identify this, if your doctor can identify this, you will be helped so differently than what conventional medicine does. And why is that? Because conventional medicine goes through conventional insurance system. Now your health insurance is just like your car insurance. It does not get activated unless you have a problem happening. So when the problem with this is that menopause or andropause are not considered problems, they are considered as regular routine phases of life. So it is your own problem to not only diagnose yourself that your system is pausing, but also you have to go seek help with people who understand that pause, and then can actually have a deeper learning of, have gone through deeper learning of how to assist you to get yourself out. And then you will be again left in a lurch because your insurance won't cover anything, so you have to go out of pocket expenses. This will be like your own problem. So your health and wellness is your own problem, and your medical system is only going to take care of your problems, which they consider as problems, which could be the problems that occur as a result of this ignoring this phase of life, which I think we need to change. That shift is already occurring because people like me exist, and we've been working on it for over a decade now.
Yeah, you definitely struck a nerve because I think the whole concept of a pause, of a transition that you go through and you don't have the cognitive awareness or intellectual understanding of it, the labels that we start to give it to ourselves, I really feel can contribute to the acceleration of aging. They talked to Clint Eastwood, and he go, "How do you keep going at 95 and so young?" He goes, "I don't let the old man in," which you're aware of, and that's a concept that I recognize within myself at 78. Just turned 78 yesterday, and I don't feel like apparently I should. If I'm hanging around someone else of that age, they're hobbling around, and we have a holistic doctor we've had for over 25 years. And so when I went to healthcare to attempt to get testosterone because mine had dropped to 70, and just instead of accepting that, I was still having a vibrant lifestyle, and I wanted to find out what I needed to do. Healthcare would not pay for a pharmacy to create it at something like $50 a vial. They would pay for $995 a vial because it was in their system. And they've had some kind of a, like you say, we would rather work on disease than work on cures. And I think it's unfortunate because it's costing healthcare so many more dollars than the savings they would make if they were allowing people the opportunity to not to get into dis-ease to begin with. But now you're up against all the lobbyists, you're up against the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, you're at a very powerful edge, and I think it's really gonna take each individual to be able to stand up and say, "I wanna be in charge of my health." And that's when if they're blessed, they get to meet you. And what's the first thing that you do when someone comes in and says, I just don't seem to have the excitement I used to have for life. I don't seem to have the energy. It's harder to move." And they've almost accepted, as I shared in the introduction, I'm getting old. And I truly believe you increase the metabolical breakdown of your body when you've instructed it that it's getting old. So give me your thoughts on that, on how we should be looking at aging as opposed to, in contrast, in comparison to the balance you talked about as a naturalness. But what can we do about it so we can live longer and we can live joyously while we're living longer? Because nobody wants to live longer if they're feeling worse. So what's your take on that? What would you say to people who have kind of caught into the deal, "I'm getting older now"?
So that's a great question. And I know that you've hit various nuances of aging. And again, aging with agency is entirely different than aging
Mhm.
helplessly. And one of the things that has not happened yet, unfortunately, is that we have not been able to switch it off. We
Mm.
cannot turn it off. So basically, you're just like this fragile little consciousness that is being held in the vessel that carries your consciousness and through time and gravity and hormonal imbalance. So what ends up happening is that certain periods of time you have to understand when the decay of your consciousness and your the system that's we're biological being, so we're these organic beings that are that are just going through time. So some of the things that you can do yourself naturally, that is do it yourself, this is nothing but some of the things that you have to do to, I say, to yourself, is very simple, easy things like move your body daily, like, eat real food, get a good sleep, stay away from toxic substances, toxic people, toxic environments,
Mm.
remove themselves out of your system and your
Hydrate.
daily lives. However, and meditate, keep all your systems alive and vibrant to the best of your ability. However, at some point when you go through the perimenopause or the periandropause or the pause, you will see that no matter what you did, all your best laid plans will just go to waste and will not take you anywhere. You would feel as if you're hitting that rock where no matter how you push it against it, it just doesn't relieve you from the, you feel that coming on of, inevitability, which is basically our systems were designed, your body was designed to last you only up until the pause. I One of the things I jokingly say to all my patients and clients is that God promised you only 50, maybe if you're lucky, 60 years in this body. This body, this vessel was supposed to last you only 40, 50 years. Our ancestors used to die by the time you were very fortunate if you made it to the pause. Something or the other would have killed you earlier. So, but now we've suddenly found ourselves, because of the medical advancement, however we got to this place in the 21st century, we have these advancements where our understanding of disease developed very quickly, and we are able to now extend your lifespan beyond its limitation. And we can, no matter how badly we do it, we have still been able to lift you out of your pauses, and we have elongated your experience in this life. However, what we've not been able to do is that extension didn't really increase also the vitality in your life. And we also have to now do it in such a way where we can not just extend your lifespan, but also extend your health span, because nobody desires to be afflicted with 5 or 7 different diseases by the time they're in their 70s or 80s and be on 15 different medications and basically sitting there waiting, going from one doctor's office to another doctor's office, because that is what ends up happening to people in their 80s and 90s. And the reason for elongating your health span to a longer later lifespan is that my belief is that your consciousness is in its best form when you turn 80. The best, like because of your experience, because of your all the knowledge that you have curated and created for yourself, and all the stuff that has happened to you, it allows your DNA to bring together the lessons of a lifetime. And by the time that you have reached that pinnacle of your awareness, your body has completely fallen apart, where if your goal or whatever your whatever message you were whatever you were supposed to do in your life. By the time you reach that goal, you realize that you have no energy and no period time left to turn it into a reality. One of the things that we can like really change for the coming generation and even our own is that by increasing the health span, we can like really make people, I feel one of my beliefs is also that God created everybody for a purpose. So whatever purpose it is, you should be able to reach it and you should be able to do well no matter when you find that purpose. So, based on that premise, when we come back, we realize that around the period, and that is one of the reasons that, when you turn 60, I call it pediatrics of geriatrics. So, we need to find people before they have entered the pediatrics of geriatrics to figure out what are the things that they need to start doing to protect their systems from inside. So when once people understand that all the things that happen to you in your 70s and 80s, especially in your brain, all those problems are problems of middle age. And that is where you need to start doing the solid steps of becoming healthy again and learning your body and learning your pauses. And I 100% also agree with you on the testosterone dilemma. Both men and women were spooked to not use hormones. Women, the HRT, the return of HRT. I should write a book where where the women are now realizing that wow, like decades worth of women were lost because their brains were lost because we did not supply them with HRT. And and now their brains are like it's so hard to bring them onto it because their brains have like already suffered irreversible damage. So similarly, testosterone was also like not recommended to men because they're like, oh, if you take too much testosterone, it might cause cardiac issues. Meanwhile, not doing testosterone damaged so many men. And can you imagine, like, testosterone is a controlled substance. You can't prescribe it unless a doctor goes and we prescribe testosterone, which is like a very basic hormone that men should have. Even women have it in our bodies.
Mhm. Yeah, sure.
We need to go and like we give it to you as if it is opium or an
Yeah.
opioid. So, and thankfully, these some of these things are being changed. Like last year, the black box warning off of the HRT, women's hormone replacement therapy, were removed, and also testosterone, needs also to be not only removed but also to be made available to people. Like even now, I have patients coming all the time who say that our doctors are not giving us testosterone. And I think we need to go back to the drawing board and go back to the med students and the people who are training in residencies and start training them right first, and then also train the trainers right, because
Yeah.
the perception has already shifted and there is so much work to be done just in this department alone. And I think that this is that area where if we fix it, it can fix a lot of solvable problems. Like this is a problem that is easily solvable. And to now not only to learn more, but also how to make it affordable, how to make it like present for people. And also, listen, too much of anything is bad, right? So even like whenever somebody gets this, they have to get it as like within reason, right? So
Mhm.
anything that you do has to be within reason and with guidance. But to place unnecessary obstructions and obstacles in the path of even the doctors to provide it to people is unnecessary. I agree with you completely.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. I have had so many questions, but we've come to a point time wise. You're fascinating. And I think everybody's really interested, needless to say, in the consciousness and the vehicle that's carrying them from moment to moment. They'll take sometimes better care of their car, or they'll cover their sofa, or they'll do something to these inanimate objects for preservation and beauty, and yet they'll deny or let go of, or typically it's a lack of awareness. And that's why with speaking with people like you, and we even have a holistic doctor for our dog, which is much healthier than most dogs, only because the mindset goes beyond, well, we learn now, and then carry that learning for years and years and years without advancing it is the same thing as Einstein said. You keep doing what you're doing, expecting different results. And that's what people do 95% of the day. And yet they don't think they're insane because they're really, and then the people, especially listening to you and I right now, they're looking for answers. They're looking for alternatives, and they're also looking for hope. One of the most important elements that we can do for ourselves is watch our narrative. And whether that makes us live longer or not, it's how we're living now in this moment that can determine whether we're dumping cortisol all day long because we're in a stress mode, or if we're able to find the joy in these moments. Because whether you take the testosterone or not, and you're not enjoying your life, what difference does it make? And so I wanted to give you a moment to share with people right now what those that are feeling kind of stuck or maybe have allowed themselves to go, wow, I've been thinking about getting older lately. I mean, you can be 35 and get fearful of the fact you're almost 40. I mean, it doesn't really matter where you are in life. What would you say to them that they could start doing that would assist them in taking care of themselves as well as their mind? And then how do they go about getting a hold of you?
Well, thank you again. That's a great question. The thing is that one of the things that I would again clarify is that knowing doctors, know your doctors. So there are two different kinds of thought. There are doctors who take care of your sickness management system. They learn the diseases that you can be afflicted with. That's what they study, and they can save you from dying prematurely. God forbid if you are in that situation. So there are those doctors, lots of respect to them. That's who I am. I believe in every doctor, every healer going through the dark side of medicine, through the dark side of disease, because unless you have gone through that dark side, that revealing side, the where you will not become a carrier of light. The light that you bring to people, the best holistic doctors are the ones who trained in the dark side of medicine, because that is super essential. So if you have a doctor who has done the work over there, will be not only be able to prevent those diseases for you, but will be able to guide you a lot better, because will be able to help you discern between elements that are harmful for you and elements that are important for you to take as supplements. So knowing your doctors and having both, because you need both. You can't just live off of holistic doctors that, God forbid, if you get sick, cannot even guide you what you need to do. So you got to have both. And however, health currently in our 21st century, first world country, health is, and wellness is an out of pocket expense. Will this change at some point? We don't know. So that is something that if you have that understanding, that basic understanding, then you know who you are seeking. You are seeking both these people. Once you have medical insurance, which we all need to keep anyway, if we live in United States, your insurance will give you that doctor who is trained in the dark side of health. But seeking a doctor who keeps you healthy and is into holistic and is into health span and longevity or anti-aging, like I call myself an anti-aging doctor because I help people with the pause. So that is something that is your own problem. You have to go and look for them. And people like me, I don't think that I'm the only person. People like me exist in every realm. So for your health and wellness, you need to go in person and keep going again and again because it is like a pattern that you have to get in the habit of. And hopefully, by doing that, you will never need to see your doctor in the dark side because you will keep yourself healthy. Because when you go to, and a lot of people tell me that, when I go for annual physical, my doctor doesn't even spend 10 minutes with me because they look at this paper and they say, oh, yeah, nothing is wrong with you. Goodbye. I see you never, see you next year. But when you go for a health practitioner, I have to spend hours with one person because
Mhm.
there is so much to explore. Every human is so uniquely different. Listen, you are just one piece. Like, can you imagine? There are billions of us and we're all unique. How, even though we look similar, but we are so uniquely different from each other. Our genetic DNAs are different. Our structurally, the molecules that make us are completely different. Our internal chemistries are completely different.
Huh.
Our problems will be uniquely different as we age. That way, when you find a health practitioner, that person kind of aligns with you in a different way and in a more healing way. So again, it's totally worth everybody's while to explore this for more and then find out practitioners who give you stuff to stay healthy. Because guess what? The only thing that matters for your system is how healthy you are and how healthy you remain, because the main wealth is health. Health is
Huh.
your main thing. Your health, your energy, your mindset, and of course, all of this come together for your brain because your body is constructed, or your body exists to give expression to whatever is in your brain, whatever your consciousness is holding. So to continue to give it expression for a prolonged period of time is extremely important. And that of self-awareness or awareness of your purpose may not reveal itself when you're in your 20s or 30s. However, the pauses will reveal themselves earlier in your life before your purpose reveals itself. So if you pause before your purpose, then you will not be able to ever get to that point. And even if you get to that point, you will never be able to do anything about it.
Huh.
So one of the things that I always say is that, not only seeking the right person for yourself, finding and aligning with it and figuring out where your ideologies meet. And if that person can awaken, you to you. Basically, what we do is that we basically help you in time as healthy as possible in a healthy state.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure having you on, and I know that our guests have had the opportunity to kind of take a look at their life and see where their consciousness is and what are they doing for their body. And, also recognizing you may experience the dark side. I've had cancer, and I think though that one of the most important things again is we all come from our own background, our own disciplines, and what we feel really is our quest and our purpose. And I want people to recognize that no matter what situation they find themselves in, there is opportunity. And it may be for longevity, it may be improve health, it may be able to better understand what they're going through so they don't talk to themselves about it in a way that's going to make their life crummy, if you will. I mean, we like you say, it's a once in a lifetime experience. We're all going to find out what's in store after our eyes don't open any longer. But in the meantime, a 1 in 400 trillion chances of being alive to begin with. And like you said, nobody has our genetic blueprint or fingerprint. We are profoundly unique. And that's why we got to be careful about generic concepts, because one size does not fit all. And you've certainly brought that to the party. And we appreciate your invaluable time that you've invested with us. So thank you again, doctor. And all of you out there, make sure you look into what she has to offer. You'll find it fascinating, not only discovering more about her and what she does, but what it can do for you. Thank you
Yes.
again, doctor.
You're most welcome. I have a podcast also. It's called Bathroom Diaries, and it's available on all platforms. And this is what I talk about. And I welcome anybody who wants to learn more. I have a physical office in New York. I
Wow.
am in Westchester. However, not everybody will be able to ever reach me, but my information about I delve into deep details about the supplements that you should be taking beyond DIY. What are the steps you need to consider for yourself? So all of that is available. So if anybody is interested in longevity in your followers, they would find a lot of good material that is already out there. And I also have a Substack. So if anybody wants to see, it's under Dr. Sofia Din. So they can find my articles on there, which detailed we go through a lot of stuff. And my favorite organ of all time is, as yours is brain, but mine is skin. And brain and skin are interrelated, because I tell everyone that, when you were like a 1 cell old, the outermost layer of that embryonic structure, which is called ectoderm, half of it turned into your skin cells and the other half turned into your brain cells. So your skin cells and your brain cells are eternal soulmates that were quantum entangled upon your birth. So they have an impact throughout your life onto your psyche. So when your skin starts failing as an organ, all of our organs are failing because we are constantly in a state of decay. However, when your skin starts failing, that's where your brain sees it and it feels that failure. So I talk about it all the time. So I welcome your audience to come take a look at it.
All right. Well, thank you again. And we look forward to the next opportunity for us to share with one another, as well as hear incredible people like you've just heard from Dr. Din. So all the
Thank you,
best
Larry.
to all of you. Thank you so much.